week's episode of Star Wars Rebels, Ezra Bridger decides to infiltrate an Imperial ship so that he can bring Kallus back to the rebellion. The problem is Grand Admiral Thrawn has arrived, and he knows exactly who Fulcrum is. He's this much closer to squashing the fly who's been ruining all of his plans. Not only that, but this week's episode featured an amazingly kick-ass scene of Grand Admiral Thrawn literally fighting against two assassins droids, completely holding his own and annihilating both of them, basically with his bare hands. This was also the episode that fully solidified why Grand Admiral Thrawn is going to be such a threat to the rebellion, and why he's arguably one of the most classic villains in Star Wars lore. This week's story is very simple. It's just Ezra going to this Imperial base where Kallus is, and he wants to bring him back to the rebellion. However, Grand Admiral Thrawn appears, manages to capture both of them, and then we get this little game of cat and mouse where Grand Admiral Thrawn is trying to figure out who Fulcrum is, the rebel spy. And through the use of switching some technological doohickeys known as cylinders, Kallus manages to place all of the blame on this one Imperial officer by the name of List, and he allows Ezra and his team to make a quick escape, where Kallus decides he's going to stay behind, feeling that he's going to be of a much greater use. The problem is, Grand Admiral Thrawn has seen through all of this, and he has big plans for Fulcrum. Now, obviously, Kallus is screwed. He's up shit creek without a paddle. But the thing is, Grand Admiral Thrawn is not just going to execute him. He's not just going to kill him outright. He's going to use him in every single way that he can. He's basically going to take advantage of the fact that this guy's a rebel spy to learn the location of their rebel base, which supposedly Kallus switched the location of, but I have a feeling that Grand Admiral Thrawn has probably memorized that map so many times that he realizes that something has been moved and something has been altered with. What I will say is this episode made me fully realize that the Empire really needs to rethink how they do their uniforms. Mostly for the Stormtroopers, and that's because you never actually get to see their faces, so anybody can practically put on a friggin' Stormtrooper uniform and just sneak into the place. Case in point, Kanan and Rex at the very end of this episode, although they do end up getting caught into a pretty sticky situation, but of course everything ends up working for the rebels. Really though, the most important thing about this episode is everything involving Grand Admiral Thrawn. The fact that basically no matter what is thrown at him, he's always sort of believed that Kallus is indeed Fulcrum, the rebel spy that they've been looking for. He's just been sort of waiting for that perfect moment to reveal that to the other Imperial officers, like the return of Wolf Yularen, who's a character who was not only in the original Star Wars movies, but also had a number of prominent episodes in Star Wars The Clone Wars. At the moment, we're just going to have to wait and see what the fate of Agent Kallus is going to be. I have a feeling it's probably not going to be too good, but I also don't think it's going to be so sudden, and I don't even think anybody's going to be able to see it coming, as Grand Admiral Thrawn made it perfectly clear that he's going to use them up as much as he can before he reveals them, and of course his big plan overall. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of Star Wars Rebels? A very nice episode, and one that finally got back to Grand Admiral Thrawn, and an episode that I feel has finally done the character justice. Not only is he just incredibly intimidating with his tactics, but just the fact that he can actually go toe-to-toe with two assassin droids is just awesome. You actually see him in an initial sparring match at the beginning of the episode where he's just going bare-fisted against them and completely holding his own right before he has this big meeting. It's almost as if he's trying to get all of this aggression out so that when he comes out, he can be like the typical sly super cobra that he always is. Kallus, on the other hand, is still a really fun character. Initially, I always thought he was just going to be a one-off villain, but for him to actually end up being a rebel spy and actually being really helpful to the rebellion has really turned him into one of my favorite characters from the series, and I really do fear for his inevitable defeat at the hands of Grand Admiral Thrawn, but I do find it fascinating that he isn't just going to kill him by the wayside. Like, he actually is going to try and use him to find the other rebels and where they are located. It's clear we're building up to some, like, really big confrontation. Not only that, but he's even keeping tabs on characters who aren't even a part of the frickin' rebellion anymore. Like Sabine Wren, who is off doing her very own thing, who I'm sure is going to make an inevitable return. We're just gonna have to wait for that to happen. What I will say is this episode mostly focused on Ezra and Kallus trying to escape from this place, which was very tense and also gave a little bit of levity to it thanks to AP5 returning, otherwise known as the Alan Rickman droid. Slowly becoming maybe my favorite droid in all of Star Wars. His just voice is so fantastic, and he totally has that perfect, like, dry humor that Alan Rickman was totally known for. But really, it's all about Grand Admiral Thrawn in this week's episode. He was just so cold and calculating and fun to watch. I loved every single second of it. And that one scene where Kallus actually reprograms the assassin droids to attack him, and he just manages to beat them all down with his fists, and then just takes up this blaster and just so coldly takes them out, is just so awesome. Such a defining badass moment for that character in Star Wars Rebels. So you should definitely check it out. This was a super fun episode of Star Wars Rebels, focusing again on the Empire and their evil ways. I'm going to give this one right here a solid 4 out of 5. I thought it was really great. Everything from Kallus and Grand Admiral Thrawn truly made this episode right here. And like I said, it's clear that this is sort of like the calm before the storm. They're building up to a big confrontation, which is either going to end with the Rebel base being destroyed, or there might be some sort of upset. I really think they need to show Grand Admiral Thrawn, though, really laying down the line. They need to show how destructive and evil he can be by wiping out their forces. It would mean a massive loss for the Rebellion, but it doesn't really matter because, as we all know, this is a prequel to the other Star Wars movies, and eventually they do topple the evil Empire. But I think this will be a great way to sort of build them up and make them even stronger. So, there it is. That's my thoughts on this week's episode of Star Wars Rebels. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Make sure to tell me what you thought about it in the comments section below. Do you think that Agent Kallus is going to simply be executed by Grand Admiral Thrawn, or does he have something even crazier in plan? What do you want to see from the rest of Star Wars Rebels? Tell me in the comments section below. Thank you guys for watching this review. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for all things Star Wars Rebels related. Leave me a comment or two, and of course, like the video. I'd really appreciate it. I will see you guys next time. And as always, may the Force be with you.